You were one of the pioneers, not just as a woman, but pioneers in general of the first Chileans making wine outside the Central Valley, at a time in which no one did that outside the Central Valley. How did you decide to do this?
Because as I was working, watching customers outside, I realized that Chilean wine was considered good, but foam, a wine without much variety, a wine that's always the same, very flat. And it was because everything came from the Central Valley. There was no terroir, there was nothing. That is, white, red, and the rest of the varieties that were there were all in the same location. So the foreigners would come for a cheap wine, good, cheap, reliable, and that created a very big stigma for us. So for all of us who have encouraged to develop new niches, new places, it hasn't been hard to later go out and sell at higher prices. It's the objective of all wineries. It has now been achieved in these last 30 years. It's been achieved and passed on, but still, we have an average price for Chilean wine of $30 a case. So we still have a hard time with the idea of selling at $50 because it's worth it. We have very good wines, especially now. I mean Chile as a whole. We've discovered so many sectors in the north, in the south, up in the mountains, next to the sea.
Of course. Well, here we are indeed in a depression of the coastal mountain range. The ocean is about 4 or 5 kilometers from here. And the sea, as we know, moderates the temperature a lot. And there are low temperatures because the currents come from the Antarctica. What happens is that the wind blows this way, and it gives temperatures during the summer of maximum 25 degrees. It is a cold climate. It is a climate in which the vines take a long time to mature. The time it takes is very long. The main thing we find in the coastal mountain range is a granite soil. Here, in Lo Abarca, above a certain height around Cote 80 and above, from that section upwards, it's all granitic soil. From that level to where we are here, there is an organic topsoil. And below us and downward, there are calcareous soils, marine soils. And obviously, in the flat parts there is clay soil.
The base of the calcareous soils is what gives you that freshness, tension, and high acidity in the wines.
Yes, that's right. Obviously, it's all of those aspects combined and more. Mainly, I would say the temperature is most important. But of course, the soils are very important in the life of the vines. In the soils there's a lot of oxygen, water, and rain collection. So these are rather deep roots. Like what you said, that gives characteristic to the wine, making it longer on the palate and more austere. These are very unique terroirs. Our philosophy is to make wines that are signature wines, but always respecting the terroir. When we make wine, we don't think about Alsace or Marlborough. We think more about harvest times according to what we think is right. Also, we are very respectful to the contribution of the grape itself during its own elaboration. We try to work the wines with the natural things we have, rather than adding things to wine. But I would say that the styles are very unique. For example, the Sauvignon Blanc. There are some journalists that say this reminds me of this region, but there are others that try the same wine and say no, this reminds me of another region.
You guys are very well known. In fact, you put Chilean Sauvignon Blanc on the map of high quality. But apart from the Sauvignon Blanc, which I want you to explain, you also grow other grapes. For example, you're introducing Riesling and Gewürztraminer, which are grapes from Alsace, from the cold climates of France and Germany. So you're introducing them here and they adapt very well, right?
Yes, indeed. As you say, Sauvignon Blanc. I think that 20 years ago, to think about producing these types of strains such as Riesling and Gewürztraminer, it was only for crazy people. In general, you bet on white grapes here in Chile, but it was a pretty accurate gamble. Aromatic strains at the time didn't exist, and there was very little Sauvignon Blanc. It was mainly Chardonnay, but we got wines worth of aging here. Wines came out with very clear, very deep acidity. They were wines very suitable for uncorking over time. This at the time was not common in Chile. The idea is to have different low-sized vats. They're vats of 2,000, 3,000, and 4,000 liters. The idea is to have each sector of Sauvignon Blanc in these vats.
Each sector of the vineyard in different vats.
Exactly. We harvest the vineyard when it's still very green. The majority is harvested when we think it's on point, almost ripe. The idea is to have a good repertoire of styles when the wines are finished. It's like a kitchen. I like to have condiments. We also leave some in the barrel. Part of the idea is to have Sauvignon Blanc in barrels, which will give it more enthusiasm and texture. In the case of Riesling and Gewürztraminer, the barrels are smaller, so, of course, I can't separate it as much as Sauvignon. We pretty much train our palate. We don't harvest based on numbers or grades. It's all berry tasting, and generally, we harvest Riesling when it's very crispy. When the Riesling has a very nice acidity that makes you salivate, that is when you have to harvest it. If you do it like this, it will give the wine a lower content of alcohol and a lower pH. So it's a wine that is suitable to drink with time.
You also make reds. You make Pinot Noir and Syrah. Let's discuss this in the barrel room.
Yes, let's go to the barrel room.
Well, we're in the barrel room, where you have some of your red wine, in particular a blend of Grenache and Syrah.
Yes, we have Syrah and Grenache. One of our trademarks is a blend of Syrah and Grenache. In this case, this has been here for 3 seasons aging in these barrels.
And then you have a Pinot Noir,
We have that too.
which you age in barrel.
Yes. We have 3 different Pinot Noirs which age from 12 to 18 months.
Are the barrels made of French or American oak?
French oak, but they are quite used. We don't like new oak very much, so we work with used barrels. This one, for example, is from 2012, so it's 10 or 11 years old.
It almost no longer gives it the toasted and vanilla flavor since they're worn out, right?
Exactly, but it does have that oxygenation role still. That adds some tertiary smells to it, which we like a lot.